This will be the first video in a nature series showcasing how to tattoo different types of animal fur, textures, tight details, and all the fun stuff. Here I'm working on this wildlife back piece. I believe this is the 5th session on this project. We have a bone-crushing bearded vulture on the top, lots of awesome feathers and different little textures throughout, swooping down on a wildebeest carcass with the wolf snarling near his recently found treasure, guarding it with his life. This is one of my favorite large-scale projects currently, depicting the cycle of life and how powerful, amazing, beautiful, and unforgiving Mother Nature can really be. I think instinctually we're all kind of drawn to these type of pieces in this classic story, and it makes for a great one to tell with a larger project like a full back piece. I really enjoy being able to tell more of a story with my projects rather than just static pieces thrown together with little or no thought into how they'll interact together. They make for much more meaningful and impactful pieces that way. Tattoos that'll truly stand out, and pieces that clients can be proud to wear for a lifetime to come. Getting into the techniques of this piece, like always, and especially with large scale work, I've already blocked in my larger areas and most of my basic shapes. Now I'm beginning to refine the feather textures and add some of the smaller details, getting into them a bit more. I've got all my base tones and forms there. Throughout this piece I'll be using a few different needle configurations. Right now I'm using a Da Vinci 9 curved mag from Bishop. Depending on the piece or the specific area, or even the texture I'm working on, I'll switch between 3 to 6 different needle groupings per project. 9 mags are almost always one of my go-tos for any project though. They're just a very versatile needle grouping and can handle just about anything. You can see I'm using this mag primarily on its side at the moment, very carefully using that flat edge to help me create more of that feather look. Slowly building it up and getting some of those small details in there. I'm working off the edge of the feathers to keep that distinctive shape and look to them. So far in the vulture, I've used probably 3 or 4 different techniques for these feathers and the textures, depending on how the light is hitting and reacting to them. Some I want to have more light showing through. Other areas I want to be built more up and have more dense areas where there may be more of an overlap of multiple feathers. I'm also beginning to refine some of my cast shadows more, again showing more of that reflective light and how the feathers can interact with each other as they overlap. Looking at it, these smaller details might not seem like a lot, but looking at the full picture, they really bring these feathers and these textures to life. So much of making any image or a tattoo look realistic is having that understanding of how the lighting is revealing or hiding forms and accentuating those areas, and how lighting ultimately works. The lighting coming through the wing I'm working on now is a great example of that. It informs our eye and gives us the idea that the wing is light and airy, more natural and realistic. It's also on the softer side and not super sharp or in focus. This is done purposefully for an overall more realistic look. Think of when you're talking to someone or focusing on one specific thing. The background will often blur out a little bit. Surrounding details and forms won't be as in focus as others. A big thing I often see in artists is trying to have everything super sharp and extremely detailed in every area. This will usually lead to an image looking flat, and the details that were meant to really make it shine end up falling short and becoming less than spectacular. Much like highlights, a lot of times with realism, less is more. If you can tattoo in a way that has the details and focus in just the right spots, it has more life to it, and more of those realistic qualities you're after, and that you may be lacking in your current pieces. A great place to look for examples of this is in photography. Look at some high quality photos and pay attention to where the focus is. How are the surrounding areas affected by that focus? What's super sharp and readable, and what's more washed out, less detailed, and pushed towards the background? You'll notice it's often these unique mix of sharp focus, dramatic lighting, highly detailed areas, and more washed out neutral spots that catch our attention, ultimately making for more impactful images, both in photography and tattoos. Again, layering in some of my shadowed areas, continuing to help me build up more of those forms and overlapping spots. This leads me to another area: choosing good reference images for your tattoos. So much of what makes a good realistic tattoo is the choice of your reference materials. You want to think of it like a roadmap. When you know exactly where you're going, it's a lot easier to get there. You know the specific roads to take, where you can stop off for a break, or to get gas or snacks, or any potential detours that might be along the way. A good reference is like a clear roadmap or the latest GPS update. It has all the information you need to get you where you want to go, and having it means you're much less likely to get lost along the way. A realistic tattoo can only be as good as its reference. Really, any tattoo for that matter. If your lighting's bad, the image is too blurry or washed out, if the composition's all out of whack and off, there's no contrast to the image, no mood, no emotion, it's highly likely that your tattoo falls flat and you're left disappointed. Choosing the best reference from the jump, on the other hand, you're setting yourself up for success in the long run. You can then enhance and edit your references to get them more how you want, increasing your contrast, adding layers or other images, maybe playing with the positive and negative space relationships. There's really so much you can do, but you have to start with the best reference possible to get the best results. Here I've switched to an 11 mag. Still working slow and methodically to get more of those edges of the feathers blocked in. Building up those shapes. I believe I'm working with a medium wash here. I'd rather start with a medium or a light tone and build it up. That way I can get it to the exact tone and contrast that I want for the piece. It's a lot easier to build up your tones rather than starting off too dark. Especially with these wings, I want to keep them light. Like I said, I want to have that light shining through and showing how the feathers would naturally look. We've been working for a couple hours here. You can see that his skin's a little red. You just really have to trust the tones that you're working with and your skill. Once you've seen things heal out, you'll be able to know exactly how your tones heal. And you'll notice I'm layering over a lot of the same stuff that I've already worked on, making little adjustments to the contrast and those drop shadows. Still using this 11 mag from DaVinci. For my gray wash, I'm using a custom mix. I've used a lot of pre-made mixes in the past, but I honestly just prefer to mix my own. We'll go over that more in another video. Basically, I just like having a little bit more control over my tones, depending on the piece and the skin tone of the person I'm working on. Now I've got this mag back on its side, refining the edges of these feathers. You can see a little more closely what I'm doing. Just slowly building up those edges, following the form. I have a real light stretch here too. You'll notice I'm not really stretching the skin a whole lot. If I was doing more of a solid black or color, I would. But here again, I'm just kind of layering over stuff that I've already tattooed. Also, the way we have him positioned, he's kind of leaning over a bit, so he's already stretched quite a bit as well. You can see the results of that layering a little bit more here too, and the form of those feathers. Again, you'll notice how everything isn't super sharp or in focus, leading to a lot more natural and realistic look. Getting one of these drop shadows and some overall contrast adjustments on these last feathers here. Really starting to take shape. We still got a few more sessions on this back piece, but it's really coming together nicely. When you're using multiple images, combining them into a full scene, you got to be aware of the light sources and how the light reacts to certain images. Anybody can just throw images together, but when you have different light sources and things reacting, you have to change them sometimes on the fly so that they work better as a cohesive piece and image. Although I will sometimes have multiple light sources, just to make things a bit more interesting. You'll see I'm being real slow and methodical still. There's no rush here at all. Worry about doing a good one. This tattoo is going to be on him forever. Not worried about how long it's taking. I'm sure even if he's in a little bit of pain, he's more worried about the end result than how long it takes. It's easy to want to rush through, especially once we get closer to the end of a piece. You just want to stay focused and stay patient, looking at the overall big picture of things. Refining those drop shadows a little bit more. Getting really close to where we want it. You'll see now as well, I'm moving my hand a little bit faster because that skin's already opened up and it's accepting that ink a lot more easily than the first couple of times we went over it. You've got to be real careful when you're layering over. I'm barely touching the skin. It's almost as I'm using a feather while someone's sleeping. You want to tickle them, but we're not trying to fully wake them up. So with these needles, I'm not burying them deep in there. I'm also not using a whole lot of pressure. I'm just kind of letting them do most of the work, keeping a smooth and consistent motion. Working on the spines of these feathers. Not much more to go now. Zooming out, you can see a lot more of the details in the piece. In the other aspects. In the wolf, we got some more fur textures. We've also got some leaves and some grasses. Some of the rough bone textures in the horns and in the skull below. Once I'm able to get in here and do another pass on the bearded vulture, it's really going to make a big difference. And then once we're able to get in and do our background, these pieces take time. Like I said, we're not worried about how long it takes or how quick we can get it done. We're worried about the end result and what it all looks like. Now I'm using a 15. Again, still layering back over everything that I've already done. Smoothing out my blends. Making any last contrast adjustments and refinements. Especially these last few feathers. They're a lot more out of focus because they have a little bit more movement to them. So they're not as refined. They're a little more loose. Whereas the closer you get towards the head, that's where I want the main focus to be. Right about where the vulture's head's at. So you'll notice those feathers there are a lot more refined. That's my point of interest in basically the whole back. The little triangle between the vulture's face, the wolf's head, and the wildebeest skull. So most of those things are going to be the most detailed areas. If I can tell you anything about doing large scale work, it's just take your time and be patient. Especially when you're just getting them started at the beginning of the project, can seem like you have so much more to go, and you can feel like rushing through it to get to a certain place. But the more you can slow down, the more patient you can be, and the more you can focus on each individual part, the better the tattoo as a whole will be. You'll thank yourself, and your clients will thank you. It definitely requires a lot of dedication from yourself and from your clients. It's not something to take lightly. Once I get into another session on this piece, I'll be sure to release a video on it. We'll be releasing some more videos as well very soon. Be sure to check those out. We'll be going more into black and gray stuff, textures, smooth, black and gray, all the way from lights to super darks. We'll be doing full color pieces, realistic nature pieces, more surrealism, pop colors, pretty much anything you can imagine. So keep your eye out for those. A few more little refinements here with this 15 mag, and we'll be wrapping it up for the day. Appreciate y'all for watching and checking this out. I'm gonna be cleaning him up here, getting it all wiped down. I'm sure he's ready for this. Again, I appreciate everybody watching. Y'all be sure to check out the next videos. If y'all have any kind of questions, feel free to reach out. Y'all have a good one.